Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, immigrant rights activists are trying to revive the idea of a shelter for Central American children in Escondido. And two federal courts giving opposing decisions on health care reform.
Plus, Irene McCormick Jackson, the first woman to file a sexual harassment lawsuit against former Mayor Bob Filner, joins us for her first TV interview since she came forward 1 year ago today. I'm Peggy Pico with that conversation. And hunting may be allowed in the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge, why the federal government wants it, and who's against it, and how you can weigh in.
Summer vacation can get some children off track in their education. Tonight, we'll take a look at a program in Encanto designed to fight the summer slump. And we'll meet the man behind the colorful sidewalk paintings in Kensington. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Bob Filner's former communications director says the work environment in the former San Diego mayor's office was bad from the beginning. In just a moment, we'll talk with Irene McCormick Jackson about her decision to blow the whistle on Filner. First, a look at some of the other stories making news tonight. The ACLU says Escondido may be violating fair housing laws by rejecting a proposal to turn a former nursing home into a shelter for immigrant youth who are caught entering the country illegally. Last month, hundreds turned out to oppose the shelter plan, but it can be appealed and brought before City Council there. The Planning Commission meets at 7 tonight. A new legal battle for President Obama's health care law. Two federal appeals courts have issued contradictory rulings on the subsidies for insurance. One panel in Washington says they're only okay in state exchanges and not for the federal exchange used in 36 states. The other court in Virginia says the subsidies are okay in all 50 states. The Obama administration says it will appeal the Washington ruling. In the meantime, subsidies will remain available. New data from the Pentagon also shows more service members are looking for help to deal with suicidal thoughts, and it shows a decline in suicides among Marines and soldiers, but there was also an increase in the Navy and Air Force. Now, a year ago today, Irene McCormick Jackson stepped into the spotlight, becoming the first woman to accuse then-Mayor Bob Filner of sexual harassment. More than a dozen women followed, ultimately leading to Filner's resignation. McCormick Jackson sits down with Peggy Pico to talk about her decision to come forward.
Irene McCormick Jackson, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much too, Peggy.
We've heard stories of Filner's misconduct with women dating back more than 20 years when he was a San Diego City councilman. Had you heard about his behavior with women and his staff before you went to work with him in 2012?
No, I hadn't heard about it, but what I had heard that he was a difficult boss, that he sometimes got angry and that he would yell and that he was very persnickety and wanted things done a certain way. That's what I heard. I had not heard that he had an issue with women and sexual harassment at all.
I know prior to this City Hall job, you were a respected journalist. You also took a $50,000 a year pay cut from your job at the Port Commission to work for Filner. Now, some people were surprised it took you as long as it did for you to come forward. Why did you come forward when you did?
Well, I did it for the other women that I saw this being, that I thought it was happening to. So a lot of it had to do with watching young women come into the office to give a presentation to the mayor and then suddenly being pulled into his private office and then them coming out 2 or 3 minutes later looking a little bit shocked. And that was in May and in June, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I said, this is crazy. It's not right. This man, something is wrong with him. He's a predator. He's mean. He's a bully. He needs to stop what he's doing.
And I know you've said that this wasn't the only incident. These last two particular women you were talking about was because they were similar to your daughter's age that really got to you. But what was the environment in the office like in general?
In general, I think it was very difficult to work there. It was hostile. It was mean-spirited when the mayor was there. But when the mayor wasn't there and it was just the staff working together, we really had a nice rapport with each other. And we made sure that things got done so the city of San Diego could run efficiently.
Is that what kept you going? I mean, coming back to you were there. Well, let me start with this. When did this sort of, if you would say, the harassment or the misbehavior toward you actually start? It
started right around the State of the City address, which was in January, so just a couple of weeks after I joined the mayor's office. Back then I thought, well, I can handle this, you know, I can tell the mayor you can't do this anymore, and we're just going to have a professional relationship and everything will be fine. But it never really stopped. And so for me, I had to do something that made an impact, but I had to do it wisely. I couldn't come out and talk about a very powerful man. He was the mayor of the 8th largest city in the country, and just make an allegation and expect it to go someplace. His power was amazing. He could do anything in that city.
He could ruin your career or fire you?
I fully expected him to if I did something like that.
What about HR? Did you try to go to HR?
The mayor of San Diego has power over HR. I mean, he manages HR. So I knew if I called HR, then he would get a phone call that I called HR. So it's in the mayor's office, you work for the mayor. You really don't work for the other departments in the city. Later, I learned that there's another department that you could go to, but even that, if the mayor wanted information, he could get information. So there's really no safe sanctuary when you're working for the mayor of San Diego.
Jumping forward, you came out, you were the first woman to come out with your attorney, Gloria Allredge. Were you prepared for the brutal backlash, some might call it, where people were blaming you, they were blaming the other women, and also defending Filner?
You know, I have to tell you, I didn't pay attention to that much. I mean, I was so focused on the outpouring of support that I got from people, the publicity that I did not expect whatsoever, that I heard about the backlash, but I really wasn't aware of it much because I was kind of shell-shocked from what I had gone through.
Has Bob Filner personally apologized to you?
No, he has not.
Would you like him to?
No, I don't want to talk to him, thank you.
You settled the sexual harassment lawsuit with the city for $250,000. Some people said they might have thought that you might have dropped this once the mayor resigned. How come you didn't drop it?
Well, I needed a paycheck, frankly. I mean, I worked at the city and then I took a leave of absence from the city. I had no money coming in. I was living off savings. I was paying for therapy sessions, and I really felt that the city of San Diego needed to pay for a certain part of it. I wasn't going after millions. I got what I wanted. I wanted the mayor out of that office, as did a lot of other women. But I just thought it would be important that the city knew that they had to pay attention to this kind of conduct within their walls.
Do you think things have changed at City Hall?
Well, I know they have a new mayor there, and I know that they are embarking on a reorganization of the administration section of the city. I'm sure having a new mayor there will help out.
Is there ever a time, or was there a time, that you regretted coming forward?
There's been a couple of times. It was very difficult. Having your career interrupted like it was, you know, I had this whole plan. I was going to work for the mayor of San Diego, work for the city I loved. I mean, gosh, I was so happy going into that job. And and then all of a sudden it was like a train fell right off the track. It's like boop, and that was very difficult. But in the long run, no, I have not regretted it. I did it for the other men and women that have issues with people who are very abusive with their power, and they can't seem to get out from underneath it. And I hope to help people like that in the future.
Are victims of sexual harassment or bullying at work, are they coming to you?
You know, I haven't reached out to folks, but I definitely hope if they need to, that they will. I will give advice. You have to have a really good set of friends around you, family or friends or a group or a pack of people who will support you the whole way. It's not an easy thing to do, and you have to do it wisely. You have to understand that if you poke at somebody who has a lot of power, they tend to slap back.
You've, as you mentioned, taken a few months off. Are you writing a book?
Yes, everybody asks that question, and yes, I am writing a book. I don't know if it'll ever get published, but writing's in my veins. I've been a writer for years and years and years, so yes, I am writing a book, and I hope to get it published someday. I really hope to help others out by what I write, how I got through what I got through, and how I hope to have made a difference in a few people's lives anyway.
All right. Irene McCormick Jackson, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Peggy. I appreciate it.
KPBS has reached out to the former mayor, inviting him to be interviewed on Evening Edition as well as Midday Edition. So far, he has not responded. U.S. airlines are not flying to Tel Aviv tonight. The flights were banned by the Federal Aviation Administration after a Hamas rocket exploded near the airport there. Several European airlines are also canceling flights. Israeli air attacks are continuing in Gaza. More than 600 Palestinians and 29 Israelis have been killed. Some of the victims from last week's Malaysian air jet crash are now in government-held territory in Ukraine. It's not known how many of the 298 victims were removed from the crash site. Pro-Russian separatists are still limiting access, but they have handed over the plane's black boxes. Ukraine and the U.S. say the plane was shot down by the rebels. A Mexico-born Stanford law professor has been nominated to the state Supreme Court by Governor Jerry Brown. If approved, Mariano Florentino Cuellar will join the court in January. Cuellar went to high school in Imperial County. He's Brown's second Supreme Court nominee. Since he returned to the governor's office, Brown will have another vacancy to fill when Justice Joyce Kennard retires in April. The majority of California's fourth graders are not reading proficiently. A national study shows only 1 in 4 are reading at grade level. Tonight, we look at a program in southeastern San Diego making strides to bridge the third grade literacy gap.
You don't see any water, but we do have the watershed. Why is that?
Second and third graders at the Earth Lab in Encanto meet twice a week to learn about Earth restoration. It's all linked to the science and literacy they're learning in the classroom. Leslie Reynolds, who runs Earth Lab, says preserving a spot like this in a park-deficient neighborhood is unheard of.
We intend to turn this into a learning lab that's not only going to teach the children stewardship, but is going to improve their academic achievements markedly.
Research shows by the end of fifth grade, low-income kids are 3 years behind their upper-income peers, simply because they stopped learning during the summer months. Gina Gianzero is with one of the 9 partner organizations supporting the Summer Readers Future Leaders program.
And so we want to create the opportunities for these kids in these communities to have the same growth opportunities.
Marnie Foster is a board trustee for San Diego Unified. She says this brings the state Common Core standards to life.
Really what we're talking about now is collaboration and collective impact. And that's what the Earth Lab does for not only children, but to their families. It opens it up for the community and helps them to learn about the world that they live in and sustaining it.
Perhaps inspiring the next scientist, all at the same time. UCSD Create and the San Diego Science Project are some of the other partners. Summer Readers Future Leaders is a 5-week program for second and third graders. A California fruit company is recalling a lot of fresh fruit tonight because of concerns over possible listeria contamination. The recall is for peaches, plums, nectarines, and pluots, all from Wawona Packing. The company says the fruit was shipped to retailers including Costco and Trader Joe's between June 1st and July 12th. They say so far there are no reports of anyone getting sick. Our neighbors in San Francisco will be voting on a soda tax in the fall. The 2-cent per ounce tax would apply to a variety of sugary drinks, and the proceeds would go to health and recreation programs. It needs a 2/3 vote to pass.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour. How safe is America? The men who led the 9/11 Commission share their assessments 10 years after their landmark report. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
There's a new anti-SeaWorld ad at the San Diego airport. People for the ethical treatment of animals paid $24,000 for the sign. It's 20 feet long and shows a man labeled as CEO in a killer whale's mouth. PETA says the sign is aimed at Comic-Con visitors to discourage them from going to SeaWorld. Park officials say the ad is offensive and tasteless. Hunting may be allowed in the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge. Peggy Pico explains why and who's against the proposal.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is taking public comments through August 18th about its draft proposal to allow hunting in the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge. More than 20,000 people have signed an online petition to ask the government to delete the hunting provision in its comprehensive conservation and environmental assessment plan. Joining me with the details are Renee Owens with the National Sierra Club Wildlife and Endangered Species Committee and Andy Ewan with the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge Complex. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Andy, why does the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Agency want to change the conservation plan to include hunting?
This is actually our first conservation plan for the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge. And the conservation plan is really our 15-year roadmap on how the wildlife refuge would be managed. So the plan calls for a variety of activities on the wildlife refuge. And our guiding legislation is the National Wildlife Refuge System Improvement Act. And in that law is the identification of 6 wildlife-dependent recreational uses: hunting, fishing, environmental education, interpretation, wildlife observation, and photography that we try to promote on wildlife refuges.
What kinds of animals are included in this plan as far as that would be allowed to be hunted?
The animals that would be proposed for hunting are things like quail, doves, southern mule deer, small game like rabbits.
Okay. And Renee, the Sierra Club opposes this hunting proposal. How come?
Well, what I like to say first is that, as I think most people know, we're not per se opposed to hunting. It's like with most issues where we look at the time and the place and the appropriateness. And so we feel that in this area, it's not justified. And we basically have 3 reasons for that. The first one is really about the unique inception of this refuge. It was established in 1996, and it was really the Fish and Wildlife's contribution to the MSCP, the Multi-Species Conservation Plan. That's a big, groundbreaking plan that we have here in San Diego, and that plan's primary purpose is conservation and protection. And so the funds and the creation was for that. So recreation is secondary.
And what are the other 2 reasons then?
Well, that's the second one is, having said that, recreation, of course, is something we consider. So we look at who's using public lands, and we look at the Fish and Wildlife's own data that tells us about 6% of revenues of outdoor users come from hunters. Anywhere from 6 to at most 12% of outdoor users are hunters. So that means everyone else using these public lands, wildlife refuges specifically, are non-consumptive: hikers, bikers, equestrians.
And let me you had a third. You had a third reason.
And so we're really saying let's look at the balance of who wants to use this. And I would like to add one of the preferred alternative.
Well, before we get to the alternative, so the preferred users, but I want to talk to Andy about this. On the hiking trails, you have multi-use hiking trails there and other wildlife observation areas. How close are they to the proposed hunting areas?
We've identified 3 areas for hunting: McGinty Mountain, Los Montaños, and the Otay Lakes Mesa area. And we have trails planned throughout the wildlife refuge. But in particular, the area, the Otay Lakes Mesa area, is sandwiched between areas that are already available for hunting by the public. They're on lands managed by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Bureau of Land Management. And we recognize that there may be potential conflicts, or the perception that there would be a conflict between the people who are using the trails for hiking or horseback riding and hunting.
Well, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but you led a public meeting about this new conservation plan. What were the citizens there concerned about the most?
The meeting was very well attended by the residents of East County, and one of the major concerns that came out at the meeting was our proposal to close a number of trails within the wildlife refuge. And while the community out in East County recognizes the value of the wildlife refuge, they also wanted to have more trails open for them to use.
And I'm going to have to end on this. Renee, you said that you have an alternative plan. Could you briefly state what that would be?
Well, actually, what I was saying is we like their alternative that doesn't have hunting, basically. So we embrace that. It's a wonderful plan. But their preferred alternative actually excludes everyone except hunters from this one region, and we don't think that's a fair, it's a balanced use of the users, and it is very close to hiking trails, to residences. So that's our primary concern.
All right. Well, we are out of time, so I want to let folks know that you can read the entire proposal, and you can find links to comment at kpbs.org. Andy Ewan and Renee Owens, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Boston Marathon winner Meb Keflezighi has a new job tonight. Vice President of Running for San Diego's competitive group, the company behind the annual Rock and Roll Marathon. He says he will still keep up his competitive running. Well, walk the leafy streets of the upscale Kensington neighborhood, and you can't help but notice the ubiquitous, whimsical sidewalk paintings. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser caught up with the man behind them.
In just a few blocks up and down Adams Avenue, you see them everywhere. There's a cup and saucer outside Kensington Cafe, a frowning, fluffy white dog at the corner of Van Dyke Ave, a lighthouse on an ocean bluff. These brightly colored pictures are painted right on the sidewalk, and they're all the work of one man.
So I'm completely 100% self-taught, and I earn while I learn. That was my motto.
Bernard goes only by his first name because he worries the name Muhammad will scare people off. As you'll hear, his story is in some ways a sad one, but he's also created a trend that is unique to Kensington. He lives far away down in Chula Vista, but he's made his mark on the walkable streets of this wealthy community with his doormat-sized pictures on the sidewalk.
This is birthed out of being desperate.
The story of the painting starts way back, 40 years ago, when Bernard was in college. His roommates were going door to door, offering to spray paint people's address numbers onto their curbs. Bernard joined them and soon was using the fees to make ends meet between other jobs.
A couple of years later, I was waiting for a bus and I left the toolkit, if you call it a curb kit, and I left it on the bus stop and went home, and when I came back to get it, it was gone.
Without his spray painting kit, Bernard improvised, taking an old paintbrush and some paint he found in a dumpster and offering to hand paint residents' curb numbers.
First, it was so terrible, I'd probably charge the people $1.50 for them. But then when I earned enough money to get my curb kit back, I became efficient at doing them, and I saw an opportunity to charge more and earn more money by offering a hand-painted custom sign.
It grew from there. One day, someone asked him to paint a palm tree along with the street number.
So I said, well, I never did any actual painting. And so now I'm thinking art and trying to be creative, and I'm having fun with it.
Then Bernard scaled up. He knocked on the door of Benny Brunetto, who owns a large stone house on the corner of Adams Avenue and North Talmadge Drive.
One day we were at home and we got a knock on the door, and it was Bernard. And he told us that he'd like to paint a picture of our house on the sidewalk. And I was a little skeptical because we've never seen this done in our neighborhood. So Bernard told me that he'll paint it, and if we don't like it, we don't have to pay for it.
Bernard began what has now become his method. He sketched the house on paper, then began drawing on a base layer of paint on the sidewalk.
I would put the blue sky down first, and then I would work on the roof of the house and in the frame of the house.
I'd come out every hour to see how he was coming along, and I thought to myself, it doesn't look too good, so I don't think I'm going to have to be painting for this painting. But little by little, it really started coming in, and I was very happy with the results.
From then on, Bernard specialized in painting portraits of homes on the sidewalks in front of the homes. It seems like an odd idea, but he says it fits the neighborhood.
There are two-bedroom homes that sell for about $1 million. So there's a certain client that appreciate art. Without Kensington and the type of neighborhood this is, the people are walking their dogs, they're jogging, they're strollers with their babies.
And he's been welcomed by the neighborhood. His paintings are on city sidewalks, which might technically require a permit, but nobody has complained.
Often pulling the neighbors next door out of their homes. That's when I know I got them.
Bernard now charges $100 to $500 for a painting and might take a day or more to finish a complicated one. But recently, Bernard has been having some trouble. He's collected money to do a few paintings or touch up his old work and then hasn't shown up for the job.
I have a mortgage, and sometimes it's a choice between getting back to folks that already paid or have my electricity turned off. And so it's just, and so
that's, here.
Yes.
How much are you going to charge me? Just come back and finish it.
I'm going to come by tomorrow. Throw an extra $50 in there, make it a $100 redo, which means I will totally redo the whole thing.
Bernard's only source of income these days is his painting, but his car is broken down. He's been having family health issues, and he says he may need some help with his business.
I'm looking for a partner, an artist who who would like to bring it into other neighborhoods, taking it to the next level.
I'm having growing pains here.
Bernard didn't have enough paint that day, so he came back later to finish the job. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Nick McVicker helped produce that story. We have a gallery of the sidewalk paintings at kpbs.org. We're in for a bit of a heat wave. Coastal temperatures will be in the upper 70s and low 80s tomorrow right through Friday. About 10 degrees warmer for our inland sections. A heat advisory goes up for the mountain and desert areas starting on Thursday. Mountain temperatures will be in the upper 80s to low 90s. The desert temps are expected to climb above 110 degrees starting tomorrow. The heat advisory will be in effect until Friday night. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.